My name is Jacelly. I'm 25 years old. I was a Jehovah's Witness and I am shunned.
All right, Jaceley. So how did you come to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses in the first place?
I was basically born into it. I say basically because I was a year old when my dad got baptized. And I was two when my mom got baptized. So I've been immersed in it since I could walk.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's all you ever knew, right?
Yes,
Okay.
they were Catholics before that, but I don't know anything about that.
Okay. Do you know what it was for them that made them, two Catholics, want to become Jehovah's Witnesses so early in your life? Did they ever talk about that, an origin story or anything?
Um, well, so how my dad tells the story is that he was working, he was a security guard. This was back in the Philippines. Um, and his coworker was a Jehovah's Witness, and they started talking about the Bible, and well, somehow got my dad to agree to a Bible study. And it went from there. And it's actually kind of funny because my mom, she was opposed to it when my dad started studying. So she did not like that at all. And she would make up all kinds of excuses for him to not go to the Kingdom Hall or to go to his Bible study or go out in field service. She would always have a long list of to-dos for him that that he had to do that day. And she even threatened my dad that she was going to lock him out if he decided to go out in field service on Saturday, because she worked 5 days a week. She was a teacher, or she still is a teacher. But so she, the weekend was supposed to be for them and me. And yeah, my dad went out in field service, and he went to the Kingdom Hall, and that really that took a toll on them. Um, I don't exactly remember um, what the turnaround was for my mom, because uh, I don't think she ever told me, but it just she started studying and they started doing it together. And well, she got baptized, I think, about like 6 months after my dad. So yeah, that's just how I've always heard it.
Interesting. She went from pretty opposed to joining, and that's I wonder what it was for her that made that switch for her. I could definitely understand, and I think it really sheds a light on how hard it must be if you have a spouse, and you have a couple and one person starts changing their whole life and changing the flow of their life, going out in service with the witnesses on Saturday, going to meetings on Sunday. It's got to be really hard on the other spouse to lose their partner in that way.
Yeah. And as the more we talk, the more you're going to realize that uh, just because she was a witness back then, this is kind of her MO with a lot of things. But
Okay.
I'll talk more about that later.
Okay. All right. We'll get to that. All right. So, what did it mean to you then to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses? At that young age, to be raised that way. How did it make you see the world?
It was weird. I mean, I know that a lot of people say that's what you think is normal, and to a certain degree, I thought that was that was normal. That's just how life was. But um, we were in the Philippines up until I was 11-ish. So I grew up around my mom's family, and my mom's family, they're very Catholic, and she's the only witness out of all of them. She's got um, two brothers and two sisters. I had to remember. Two brothers and two sisters, and then she has two half siblings, and all of them are Catholics or a version of it. And they did Christmas, they did birthdays, they did all of that. I went to a Catholic private school because it was my mom taught there, and it was also the best private school in the city. So I went to Catholic school, and 98% of our kids were Catholic. And then, I mean, there was even like they would have mass every Friday. So that kind of Catholic, and the non-Catholic kids got their own room where they tried to turn us into Catholics. Literally, they would pass around like the rosary and teach us about the Father, and like all of that. And I don't remember a lot of it as a kid, but uh, I always thought that was kind of weird, like growing up in a very religious country and like very Catholic. Um, it was weird, because there's a lot about Catholicism, and especially traditional or older, um, and it's just I just thought it was normal. I mean, I thought that it was weird that we weren't Catholic, but that's just how my life was.
Yeah, that's interesting. First of all, I guess you've got the cultural aspect of um, are Filipinos typically Catholic? I mean, is Catholic
Yes,
the
yes,
state religion or whatever you would call it?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Filipinos are. I think the latest poll on that was like 78%. Don't quote me on that, but most of the country are Catholic. Like that's just what it is because of the Spanish Inquisition. So,
Gotcha. And
yeah.
it has to be interesting to have been as Jehovah's Witnesses as a kid, you're always trying to convert everybody else, or at least you're taught to try to convert other people. But here you were the witness kid, and they were trying to constantly convert you. That had to be a lot of pressure too, because when witnesses are trying to convert other people, witnesses are never the majority, or
Yeah.
almost never. In this instance, you're by far the minority, and you've got this majority that is very much one specific religion, and they're all coming after you, trying to convert you. That's kind of, I don't know, what did that feel like? Do you remember being in those classes or having them maybe passing the rosary around or whatever when you're supposed to be this good little witness kid?
It was almost it was really nerve-wracking as a kid, like because it was like going to the Kingdom Hall. Like we literally had like our own hall, and it was like going to the Kingdom Hall, except they were trying to no, there was no Jehovah, just the Father, Christ, the Holy Spirit. Like it's just that. And like, yeah, they would pass around like little collection plates and everything. Like it and it almost every time I went in there, it just felt like a sin. But there was like nothing that I could do about it. That was literally the minimum that I had to do. And I don't think my mom, she taught at the high school. I was in elementary school. I don't think my mom knew exactly that that was what was going on. And I never had, as a smart little kid, I didn't tell my parents I'm not about to get in trouble for something that I have no control over. So I went and I just kept my head down. I honestly thought that Jehovah was going to disintegrate me if I touched the rosary. Like it was that bad. I was just like, nope, I don't want anything to do with that. And it really also doesn't help that as culturally we believe in ghosts and the devil and the whole thing. Like it's not just a cartoon. Like people literally tell you stories of seeing heads flying, severed heads flying. Like that's just the norm. Like that's what it was. And so it doesn't help that being raised in that, and then being raised as a witness and saying, oh, all these the Revelation book. Everybody talks about it, but like you're made to believe that culturally, and now you're made to believe it as a religion, and you're just sitting there like, I'm gonna die somehow. I'm gonna do one thing wrong and I'm gonna completely just die, just dead. That's all I thought, just sitting there. I was like, nope, I'm not touching that.
Yeah, that's intense for a kid. Little kids are supposed to be playing and having fun, not living their lives in constant perpetual fear that their God is going to disintegrate them because they touched a rosary. Or I imagine you just felt, like you said, a lot of guilt just even going into the building and doing the things, even just being present, even if you didn't touch anything or actively participate.
Yeah, and it was I say it was weird because I also wasn't the perfect witness kid. I honestly was not. I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done in school or back in the Philippines. In school, we had to conduct the national anthem. Like there was 5 days a week, we sat in the courtyard or stood in the courtyard, and we would sing the national anthem. That was just the beginning of the day for you. And when you get to a certain grade, you get to conduct it, and you don't have a choice in that. And so I had to go up there and conduct it, and I never said anything to anybody. Like, did not say a word, but I did it. I cheated on tests. Like I mean, I was a smart kid. I still cheat. I let people cheat off of me in tests, and I was. But you would have never known that I had done all of those things. So I was a straight A kid, always number one in my class, top of my class, always got everything, like spelling bees, math bees. I could literally multiply like a 6-digit number by 6-digit number in 30 seconds. Like I was the best in everything I did. But it's because I made up for a lot of that because I was doing all these wrong things. And I was like, I don't want everybody to know I've been doing those. So I'm just going to be the best at everything I can be.
Oh, I'm pretty sure if cheating on tests or letting other people cheat off you or leading the national anthem, I'm pretty sure if that's the worst you were doing in life, uh, you were okay. You know what I'm saying? Like these are normal things that kids do. It's just Jehovah's Witnesses would take those things and make you feel like some sort of horrible, sinful person for doing them.
Oh yeah. And we would do like class birthdays. So we just have food all the time. Like my husband teases me for it because there's only two of us on $3 and 3 cats, but they don't eat human food. And I make like food enough for like a whole freaking family. And he always makes fun for me for it. And I was like, it's just the way I was raised. And so we would have like birthday parties, and it would be like, and I went to a private school. These kids were rich. Like we like their parents would have a whole feast for them, complete with a cake and everything. And like I would eat that. I would like throw surprise parties. Like we would have surprise birthday parties. I would do that. And it always made me nervous because my mom knew all my teachers because the high school was like literally a block away. And she knew everyone. I don't think anyone ever told her because nobody knew I was a witness. But yeah. Yeah.
So then does that mean that you did not go to school that there were not other witnesses in your school?
No. Well, actually, when I was in 4th grade, because 5th grade was my last year there. When I was in 4th grade, there's 2 other kids that was in my same carpool. So we were in the same carpool, and we went to school together. They were not in our congregation. They were in a neighboring congregation, but my dad knew them. My dad is an elder. He's been an elder since I can remember. But he knew them. So our parents knew each other, but we all weren't like we didn't really talk about it. Like we didn't tell on each other. We just kind of all existed in agreement that nobody was going to say anything about it. Um, but yeah, it was funny too because when it was just us like hanging out, we would play like Bible games or like who knew the lyrics to which song in the songbook more, like that kind of stuff. But yeah, it was just a non-verbal agreement that we were all just gonna stay in our lanes and keep our little circle within our circle.
No, yeah, I get that. Look out for one another.
Yeah.
So, I guess I would normally ask, what childhood was like at home and in the Kingdom Hall. And I guess for you, you have kind of two different worlds because you said you moved from the Philippines, I guess, when you were like 11. Is
Yeah.
that when you came to the United States, or did you all go somewhere else? Or
No, that was when we moved here.
okay,
Yeah. Uh, it was. I always almost had like a divide in the Philippines. Anyway, we had like home life was different. I kind of lived another life in school,
okay,
where nobody knew, and it was pretty easy to just kind of because no one was gonna tell on me. My school was on the other side of the city. Like I got lucky. I never got caught.
sure,
Um, but my mom being so close, some things do get back to her, and so I still had to be careful. But we were kids, like kids my age didn't give a shit. Like I went and did whatever the fuck they did. So yeah.
okay. So what was home like life for you, I guess, in the Philippines, or when you were growing up as a kid? What was the temperature of the room? Were you all a pretty happy family? Did you all have fun together? And then were you all one of those? Were you all a super spiritual family in the congregation, at least?
Um, Growing up, I've always like my dad has always been an elder. He's been an elder since I was 4 years old. He was a regular pioneer. Uh, he was the secretary of the congregation. I mean, he held a lot of responsibilities. District circuit conventions, a whole yard and a half. But uh, when we were in the Philippines, I, I don't remember a lot of it. Quite honestly, the thing is that my parents got married because they got pregnant with me, and being from very Catholic families, they had to get married, and so they got married in January, and I was born in July. My mom had just finished college; she had other plans for her life, and then she got pregnant with me, and everything kind of fell apart for her, and so uh, I was always at fault for that. I was blamed for it a lot as a child. I was blamed because they were stuck married to each other, all that. So yeah, but it's not like at least before my brother was born, first 8 years of my life, it was it was actually I don't really have a lot of bad memories about that. I mean, we went on vacations, we did things as a family, but it was always just there whenever she would get mad or something, and she'd get mad at my dad. My dad drunk. He's an alcoholic, and she would always blame me for it. But my brother was born when I was 8, and I think that's when everything kind of shifted, and he was the golden boy. And but the thing was, my mom left for the States when I was 10, and my brother was 2, and she left for a year. And my brother, when he first saw her, well, after a year, we had picked her up from the airport, and but my brother didn't know who she was. So he hated strangers. Like he clung on to me the whole entire cab ride home. because he did not know who she was and he was scared. And I remember my dad had to go to his family's place, and they lived like 8 hours away. And he had went because that was the last time he was going to see them because we were leaving for the States. And my brother just cried and cried and cried, and he wouldn't stop crying when I was in school. And then I would come back and he'd be fine, but I couldn't be out of sight because he was not. So I stopped going to school for a week. Like my mom was like, it doesn't matter, we're gonna leave anyway, because it was July, but in the Philippines we start school in June. So I stayed home, but yeah, my brother was not in good shape when my dad wasn't there, and I guess seeing that jolted a sense of reality for her because she's been treating my brother like a baby ever since. Not very healthy, but it's how she dealt with it. Is that, to this day, my brother's a golden boy. I mean, especially seeing as how I'm not even a witness anymore. But yeah,
is any of that cultural just because he is a boy?
Yes, to a certain extent, yes, but also he was planned, and they were ready for him. All of that,
Okay.
Yeah, the things that they didn't get to plan with me, they got to plan with him.
Sure, that's super unfair to you.
Yes, I seriously heard that a lot as growing up. Is that I ruined her life. And, yeah.
Yes, you, a helpless baby, ruined an adult woman's life.
Because they couldn't get protection, or I don't know. But
well, I'm saying that. I mean, just think about the contrast there. You were a baby. You couldn't have done anything. This is all her, right? She was an adult. She has to stand for her own actions, and she's putting the blame off on a helpless baby. That's pretty cowardly, honestly. You were just a kid. So it sounds like, I guess you guys had some vacations and you did some fun things. I'm sure there were good moments, but you said, so your dad was an alcoholic, and your mom was, doesn't sound like she was the happiest if she's walking around blaming a child for her actions in life.
Yeah, that was pretty much my normal for the first 11 years of my life anyway.
Gotcha. So was there something that prompted the move to the United States? Was it just opportunity or something else?
Yeah, my mom had the opportunity. Also, she a lot of her coworkers had come here, and they kept telling her to do it because it was good money and give us a better life, the whole shebang, living in a third world country. So she applied. She got in actually twice. So the first time they couldn't come up with enough money for her to come here, and then the second time they came up with enough money for her to come. And she was actually supposed to go to Kansas the first time, and then the second time it was here in Baltimore. So
okay. So were you all pretty strong in the Kingdom Hall in the Philippines? I mean, I would assume so. Your dad's a pioneer and an elder. And so I guess I'm just wondering, did you enjoy the meetings growing up? Did you like participating at all? It doesn't sound like it, maybe because of the way you were reacting at school, but maybe you played the game.
Oh, I did. I played the game really well. Never missed a meeting. Ever. You were not allowed to miss a meeting unless you were literally dying. And field service every Saturday. Every single Saturday. You had to go out in field service. And just meetings. We had meetings 3 times a week. Like, I mean, they don't have that now, but man, it was such a pain because it was just every other day that it was either a meeting, you had to go in field service, you had to do family study, and you had to do all of this stuff. And all I wanted to do was play outside with my friends. Like I just wanted to, and my mom, she thought she would get a girly girl out of me anyway. Like I hated dolls. I literally took off their heads and showed, like I dismantled those dolls. Like, my mom was thought it was like fun because I was not like I don't want to wear dresses. I hated dresses, and I had to wear them to the Kingdom Hall, and I did not want to wear dresses any other time. And I wanted to play, and she'd always get mad at me because I'd scrape my knees, and she'd be like, everybody's gonna see that at Kingdom Hall tomorrow. That's not a good look for a young lady." I was like, I'm a kid, like, but that's how it always was. Our dresses were always pressed. We always looked like the perfect witness family. You could not say it otherwise.
Gotcha. So you guys looked the part, but I mean, but behind closed doors, your elder father is an alcoholic. Your mother, who is probably seen a certain way, was she a pioneer or anything?
No.
Okay, I
She
mean, she was
actually,
working and.
yeah, no, she would pioneer like during summers because she would have summer off, so she'd auxiliary pioneer. Like she did, just enough for it to not be shameful.
Gotcha. So I'm just going to ask you a quick question, and then I'll figure out how to get to that side because I don't know this piece of information. When were you baptized? How old were you?
I was 12. It was May
Okay.
16th, 2009.
Okay. So then you were baptized in the United States.
Yes.
Okay. So, so you guys make the move from the Philippines to the United States. What was that like for you in particular? I guess leaving all your family behind, leaving everything you had ever known. Were you excited for the move, or what was it like for you?
I was really sick. That was around the time when the flu was going around, the swine flu, and I was really, really sick. So I don't really remember feeling anything but sick. I remember a lot of the trip I just slept. My brother was miserable the whole time because he wasn't feeling too great either. And he actually threw up on a when we had landed in Detroit for us to come into the United States. And we were sitting there my mom was answering the questions and she was carrying my brother, and my brother just threw up all over this guy. And I was like, that's it. We're not getting it here. Like, they're going to kick us out of the States. And he just took it by stride. He was like, oh, that's okay. I'll get some Kleenex. I was like, okay. But it was a long, long plane ride, and I just wanted to and I didn't really, I don't think I really thought about it. I mean, as a kid, I was just like, well, I guess we're leaving. And at that point, I was just like, if this is how it has to be, I don't really remember being mad or sad about it. I just kind of took it by, all right, let's do this then.
Yeah. So again, it was just another thing in life that you had to do. You really didn't have much of a choice in it, whether it was the going to the things you had to do in the Catholic school, going to the Kingdom Hall, or moving to America. You were just a kid with no autonomy who was doing what you had to do, right?
Yes, that was who I was. And growing up, you just kind of had to do what you were told to do, or just kind of. And as a kid doing Bible studies, I would always ask questions. And when you're repeatedly told not to ask any questions, you just stop asking questions. You just turn them into smart ass remarks and then get in trouble for that. So yeah, it was. went along with everything that happened. I it got, I'll talk about what broke that, but at that point in time, I was just like, yeah, we're doing this. Now we're here. Great. Can I get some sleep?
Okay. Okay. Yeah, actually, Jenny and I had the swine flu when it was around. That some of the sickest I've ever been. Just remember feeling delusional almost. Fevers were so high, and it just went on and on and on. It was rough. I can't imagine moving countries with that. That's horrible. So you all come to America. I guess, does anything change when you get here, or do you all kind of settle into the routine, going back to meetings, field service, family study? Is that constant routine just brought over from the Philippines, and you all just kind of fall back into it, and she goes to work, and everything kind of continues as it was, but in a different place?
Yeah, kind of. The only difference, the biggest difference was that my dad didn't work. So in the Philippines, he had his own business. He was running it, and that took up a lot of his time. But now we had moved here, and he didn't have a job visa, so he was he wasn't working. So he got to be the stay-at-home dad. He would get us to school, pick us up from school, do the housework, cook dinner, the whole thing. I think that made him a little resentful, but that's what he had to do for a long time because he didn't have a work permit, so he wasn't allowed to work.
So he was resentful that your mom got to work and he didn't?
Yeah, I mean, it just it took a toll on him, especially because I know culturally men are supposed to work. I mean, they're supposed to provide for their family, and then you get the witness to rhetoric of a man is supposed to provide for his family. So he almost stepped down from being an elder, something he had been for a long, long time, because he thought he wasn't man enough because he couldn't provide for his family. That's how seriously he took it. And
he took that harder than alcoholism.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm just saying that's an interesting contrast there, that he was okay being an elder with that, but he wasn't okay being an elder and not working. Like, that really bothered him internally.
Yeah, and I mean, if you ask him, he didn't have a problem. But I was 8 when I had my first drink, because he was drinking with his buddies, and he was like, "Hey, you want something to drink?" I was 8. I was like, "All right, sure," not knowing it was full on whiskey and it was gross. I was 8. Let everyone know I was 8, and I remember my mom locking him out of the house because he was drunk. Like that, that's not talked about. We didn't talk about that. That was just kind of swept under the rug. But it took it that almost killed him, because it was when I was 13, and he had gotten up to go to the bathroom at like 4 a.m, and he collapsed. And when they did tests, they found that he was in the first stages of liver cirrhosis, and he had stopped drinking. He started, and he got better, but that almost killed him. And you would think that would stop him from drinking. No. he still drinks now. He doesn't drink as much as he used to, but he does, and his doctor tells him not to do it, but he does. And it's just, I guess I guess you don't have a problem that you just do this. But yeah, that's not a problem. Not a problem
Well,
at all.
sure. I mean, in order to drink at that level, or when something is an addiction, there's always a level of denial. That's how people can persist. They don't look at it or don't think they have a problem, right? And
Yeah.
I don't know your dad. I don't know what he's running from. I don't know if he's just chemically dependent on it, or if there's also, maybe there's some trauma or something he's running from in his life that he's escaping into a bottle to avoid. I don't know his situation, but it's sad, and no one would sit down and plan that for their life, right? Like nobody would sit down and say, yeah, I'm gonna probably be a somewhat absent father, and I'm going to wreck my health for what is in this bottle, if they had a real choice. So I don't, he has some choice to get better. And I hope if that's still an option, that he would do that. But it's difficult. It's a difficult path.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't blame him. I really don't. The way I grew up, I don't blame him at all. But
gotcha. Yeah. So what is the progression of 11-year-old Jace moves to the United States to 12-year-old Jace gets baptized? What's the progression there?
So when we first got here, we actually, my mom was going to an English congregation, but we decided that we were going to go to a Tagalog congregation, which was about like 30 minutes from where we live, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on traffic or who was driving. My dad could get there in 27 minutes, as he always says. But we started going to a Tagalog congregation, which was nice because you still got to be around Filipinos, and that was the thing that attracted them the most. And it was harder for my dad, because my dad didn't speak a lot of Tagalog, because he spoke Cebuano, which is a completely different language. Well, it's a different language. So he had to learn to speak Tagalog. And I think we were here for like 2 months, and it was when we were still doing circuit conventions like twice a year, and he was asked to do a part with another brother for for a brother that was giving a talk. So they wanted him to do a demonstration, and it was funny because I know he really wanted to do it, but he also didn't speak Tagalog pretty well, so he was really scared about that. And the elder was just like, "No, you can do it. You can do it." And he did it, and he was really proud of himself. But that was like the first 2 months, and it made my dad happy. And I was like, "Oh, that's really cool." And I had to learn. I didn't have to learn. I had to learn witness Tagalog. I knew how to speak Tagalog because it was taught in school. We were supposed to speak it. So I knew how to speak Tagalog. But Tagalog and then Bible Tagalog are two completely different things. And I had to learn. That. My brother, for the first 3 years of his life, only knew to speak Cebuano. And then he was going to school in English and going to the meeting in Tagalog. So what ended up happening was that my brother and I actually both we both speak English at home, anywhere, because it was easier for us. It was really easy. I hate to say like, but it was really easy for me because in school I had to speak English. That was required. We had to speak English. They would literally take your allowance away if you didn't speak English at school. So, the transition between that and here is just the difference is that we were taught English, and then here we're taught American English. So that was the only difference that I had a kind of rocky start with. But yeah, and then my brother, he adjusted really well in school. He was speaking English by the time like a month came. But it was funny because his first week there, the fire alarm had gone off, It was really loud, and he didn't know what was happening. And that traumatized him for a long time. But he would not go to school. He would not, and they could not figure it out because he didn't speak English. Um, but yeah, my dad somehow figured it out. But everybody was still kind of adjusting to this new thing. But it, for me, it kind of felt like we were back to being a family because we were apart, and things were harder in the Philippines. And to me, it was just nice to have everybody under the same roof. And I looked at it as a chance for everybody to start over, and I don't know, clean slate. And I really like going to the Filipino hall. Like, it was fun. It felt like home. And I was probably the youngest girl then. So everybody kind of doted on me, and full of grandma, grandpa age Filipinos. So you're doted on, and I like that because I hadn't been 8 years of my life. I was the only I was the only kid, and then suddenly there's someone else vying for attention, and everybody stopped paying attention to me. So that was nice. Made some friends. I was kind of getting settled in, and friends in the hall anyway. And I think so. We moved July, and then the next year. So I got baptized in May, but this elder, for like 2 months before the circuit assembly, he just kept following me around. He was our PO. What is it now? Whatever.
Kobe's coordinator of the body of elders.
Yeah.
It used to be presiding overseer.
Yeah, but he was our Kobe, and he would just follow me around, going, "Well, your friends are getting baptized. What are you doing? Your friends are getting baptized. What are you doing? Do you want to get baptized?" Literally, I'm not even joking. After the meeting, before the meeting, after service, just all the time, I would get asked, "Do you want to get baptized? Everybody else is getting baptized. Do you want to get baptized?" I mean, what was I supposed to do? I was 12. I was just like, all right, sure, I'll get baptized. And I just was like, yo, let's do it. So that's literally how it's so funny. It's comical because I didn't even know they had to interview you to get baptized. I thought you were just asked if you wanted to, and then that was it. Nope, I had to answer this question to the book that I had never even touched before. And I went into the first interview. I was completely unprepared, did not know what was going on. And it was the American brothers that did my interview with me because it was easier for me to do it in English. So at least my first two were with English speaking brothers. And it was just funny. Like, I walked in there with no knowledge of anything, didn't prepare for anything, and finished the whole interview. Well, the first part of the interview, and the elder was like, "You did so great." And I just pulled everything out of my ass. I was just like, yeah, sure, whatever. But I knew the answers. Literally, I could literally just sit there with my eyes closed, and I could answer every single question. And it was so redundant because it was the same thing for 3 more times. And I was like, why do I have to do this? And then the fourth part where they approve you and they get you ready. And so I did all that. And there was a question where, what's that first question? Have you made your dedication to Jehovah God or something like that?
In prayer.
Yeah. And I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know how to do that. And then we got to the circuit assembly, and it was the baptism talk. We're going into the locker room, and our CO was, he was like, "Oh, welcome, our congregation name." And everybody kind of laughed because literally 7 out of 8 people getting baptized that day was from my congregation. Yup. they
Oh,
did
so
they did this for numbers.
oh wow.
Yo,
He was really pressuring people to get baptized. A
actually,
lot.
it might have been more than that because it was three other friends of mine. Yeah, no, it was seven. Like literally, I was, and that's just how it was, and that's how
So
I got baptized.
so you got baptized because you were told to get baptized because it was the thing to do. Everybody was doing it. You were pressured to do it.
Yo,
Did you have any idea what it really meant or what it would mean for the rest of your life?
I'm going to reiterate one more. I was 12. I mean,
I know, I know.
I could. I literally did not know what it meant. I didn't even know you had to do half the things that you did. Like, I grew up in it. That's what everybody did. So that's what I did. I mean, I didn't know the consequences of what would. I wasn't even familiar with, like, I knew people got disfellowship, but that's all I knew. Like, it was. I wasn't aware of anything like before I got baptized. I
You
just
mean
did
12-year-olds aren't ready to make lifelong commitments?
it. Like, and the worst part of it is that I mostly did it because I wanted my dad to be proud of me. And um, he missed my baptism, actually. I got baptized, and my brother was making a fuss. So he went to the cafeteria and he watched my baptism on the TV, but he wasn't there. I was that um that was a little that was hurtful. And I was like, okay. And the worst part about it, to make it even worse, is that I had broken my wrist 2 weeks before that. So they had to wrap, so I had this bright pink cast and um I had to wrap it with plastic. And everybody after knew it was me that got baptized. I mean, it's kind of hard to miss, like a little 90-pound girl with like a 5-pound cast on her arm. But yeah,
That's
like,
yeah, I can see why that would be tough. You know, you already mentioned being 8 and having your parents' full attention until then, and then of course your brother comes along and things change. And now here you are on your baptism day. You really wanted your dad to be proud of you, and then here he is with your brother somewhere else, right? Watching it on the TV instead of being there. I can understand why that would be hurtful, and something because, and I understand why that would have also meant a big deal to you. I mean, do you know how many people I talked to who got baptized just because they wanted to make mom or dad proud, or they thought that it would, I don't know, atone for some young sin that they had done at such a young age, or sadly even atone for abuse they had gone through. It's it's just a bunch of kids making what ultimately is a bad decision, but without anyone to guide them as to whether or not it really is a decision they should make or not. It's just the only choice. When it's the only choice, it's not much of a choice.
no, it's real. And it's funny because I've always been a daddy's girl. That's how, and my dad raised me. And I remember when I was like 4 or 5, we were in bed. It was me, my mom, and my dad. And my dad told me he never told me he loved me, just kind of out there. But I said, I love you, Dad, with all of my heart. And he goes, no, you can't do that. And I was like, I was a little kid. And he just straight out said, no, you can't love me with all your heart. And I was like, but why? He was like, well, because the Bible says you have to love Jehovah with all of your heart. So you can't love me with all of your heart. You have to love Jehovah with all of your heart. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I literally said that. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. You're my dad. And that's just what my dad said. He's like, you can't. I was like, all right, I guess I can't. So
That's really sad. really, really sad that he would. Good Lord, you were a kid,
Yeah.
and saying "I love you, Dad," with all of my heart. I mean, how old is he that he can't understand that you can say that and still like love your mom too, or love your friends, or love God, or whatever, right? It's a saying, and to have to qualify it and get technical like that based on scripture, wow, that's really a
Yeah. I was
what
four.
Jehovah's Witnesses are.
And that's probably one of my earliest memories. And
Hmm.
I still remember it to this day. I'm like, what possessed you to tell a child that? I'm 25 now. Like, as a kid, I was like, okay, whatever. Now I'm 25 and I look back and I go, who the fuck says that to a kid? So
uh
yeah.
no one healthy.
Oh yeah.
And I think it also goes to show that they don't know what love is. They have no idea what love is.
Oh, no,
They
no.
don't get it. They view love as like performance and control. Like you give your all to Jehovah, that shows you love him with all of your heart, right? Or
Yes.
it's not a feeling. It's not something within inside you. It's performative.
Yeah, and it's always been that. It's black or white, black or white.
Yeah.
So yes
Yep.
or no, right or wrong. No, you don't grow up with a lot of gray area. You grow up in either black or white, and that's literally all it was.
All or nothing rigid thinking is a cognitive distortion, and one that many have, not only as Jehovah's Witnesses but also after we leave, and something to
Yeah,
work on. But um, yeah, when you have to black and white or all or nothing your child's love for you, my goodness.
yeah.
So you got baptized. Did it feel good? Was there anything good that came of it afterward? Were you at least praised that day? Did you feel special that day? Anything?
Oh yeah, I felt special. I felt like I was on top of. I mean, as an elder's kid, you're constantly pressured to be this and that, and now like elders are like, oh, now you can because it was in May, summer was coming up. They're like, you can actually pioneer now for summer. And that's just what you were supposed to do, and of course, that's what I did. No, then tried did the whole got my parts thing and doing all of that, helping out in the Kingdom Hall. Like I was the perfect little witness kid. And after I got baptized, that was the same thing. I just did what I was supposed to do. And it didn't really feel any different to me. But about what's it, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. 6 months later, it was Thanksgiving. It was just before Thanksgiving break and flu season. So to backtrace this, we after the Sunday meeting, at least when it was colder, we would go have dinner at um, at a sister's house. So this sister had her husband wasn't a witness, but it was their house, but there was another couple living there that were also witnesses, and they spoke Cebuano. Like we were all from the same region, so her family, my family, and two other families that were like from the same region. So we all spoke Cebuano. That was kind of like their downtime, and we would have dinner and we'd hang out. And but yeah, they lived with this sister, and that sister had two kids. But in that particular day, so it was my dad wasn't there because my dad was sick. My friend's family, it was only her mom and dad. So my friends, they had four girls. So my friends weren't there. So, and the other family didn't come either because both of her kids were sick. So it was just my mom, me, my brother, and the other couple. And then uh, this gets confusing. So the sister that owned the house didn't participate in dinner because they were just kind of there. Um, but this older couple, her husband, I got baptized the same day I did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he had grown kids. His youngest was 19, and he didn't believe in it, and then he got baptized the same day I did. But he was older, but he was close to my parents. Him and my dad were really good buddies, and my brother and two kids from the sister were downstairs in the basement, and I was downstairs with them watching TV. And he went into the laundry room, which was weird to me because we're at dinner, and he called me over, and we all know how the story goes.
Are you talking this older brother who was just baptized?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we all know how the story goes. I go in there, turns off the lights, and I just froze. I didn't know what to do. Sure. I'm going to reiterate. I was 12. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And he started touching me.
You can be 30 and freeze. I mean, it's reaction.
Yeah, and I somehow escaped that room. I don't know how to this day, but I remember I had to see him every single time, and he would threaten me. He would tell me that if I told anybody that he was going to make my dad suffer, and he was going to make me suffer for it. And I was like every single time. And you can't really avoid a guy that is your parents' friend, like you had, and you went to the same hall. Like, I was not okay. I hated going to the meetings, and not just because of usual reasons. Like, I didn't want to be around him, and I didn't have a choice. And I was on edge, and like, my parents wonder why I have anxiety now. Like, that happened, and I was forced to be around him. And every single time he would see me, he would threaten me. Every single time. There would not be a day that went by and he wouldn't threaten me. And I finally broke down around Christmas. I told my best friend, whose parents were there that day. And my best friend told her mom told my mom, and they kind of got out in the open. And nobody asked me how I felt. Nobody asked me what happened. Just, it happened. The elders were called. They had a meeting, subsequent meetings, and only to come back like 3 months later and say, yeah, nothing's happening. Just all under the rug. My dad didn't even, maybe like 3 months, for like 3 months or so, everybody were kind of worried of this guy. We all just, But then after that, it was just back to normal. And it was never just talked about. We all just kind of swept it under the rug. I didn't even know you were supposed to report that to the police until I was 20 and in therapy. And I think that was, I had just been baptized. I'd been promised that this would be a great life and all of this, and that shattered that illusion. And I felt like I did something wrong, that everything that I had done as a kid had come back for me. And when the Bible verse that they give you is that things happen for a reason, you as a 12-year-old, you just kind of sit there and you're like, okay, there's a reason why Jehovah wanted me to go through that. Like,
so you're saying that because you cheated on some tests, and I can't remember the other thing that you did that was so heinous, but you cheated on tests and such, so that was the reason, because you were such a bad kid. Jehovah was working this out by having this creep do this.
Wow. that's how I mean, I was traumatized. I was always on edge. Like I just my anxiety was through the roof and nobody cared.
Sure.
Literally. Nobody gave a shit how I felt. Just everybody moved on. That was never talked about again.
So you see that when it comes down to it, I guess it was all about crime and punishment. So basically, can we prove that the crime was done with, of course, the whole two witness rule and all
Yep.
that? And if they can't, then they can't punish. So therefore, nothing happened. And let's say even if something did happen, do you still think they were going to like sit you down and talk to you and ask you how you were feeling and try to help you out?
No. The elders, literally the meeting I had with the elders were just um the elders sat me down and was like, well, was anyone else there? I was like, why would anyone else be, how would that even work? Like, and so like they were like, well, if there's no one else there, then we can't do anything about it. And they were like, we wrote to the branch and that's what they said too. So there's nothing that we can do about it. And they were like, well, just the next time it happens, just scream or yell. And I was like, next time it happens, like you, okay, sure, yes, okay, thank you. I'll send up a flare every time this guy gives me the creeps. Like he was still allowed to be around me. Like I was so confused. I was just like, I don't understand. Like, what did I do wrong? Like
Nothing. But
but that's how they made it to be. Like I was just, I I felt like, and the funny thing about it is that I don't even know if his wife knows. Like I don't know if she knew, and she had 3 girls. Like my best friend's family were 4 girls, and like if she knew, that's really fucked up. But my best friend's family knew, and doesn't matter. We're still hanging around them. Like it was just, it just never happened.
no, yeah, they just again that they act it like you said, it never happened to them. So there's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to talk to you about. But again, next time it happens, well, then you can again scream or whatever. Again, shows that they totally don't understand. So Jehovah directs them, but somehow Jehovah can't figure out how trauma and abuse works and help them to see how it works so that they can be responsible around it. And it's disgusting, and I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I'm sorry that the initial events happened, but I'm also just really sorry that all the adults around you let you down, because they all should have been concerned for you and
Yeah,
tried to help.
no, there was no help. Um I don't know. I always just go like, but why did you just let that, like, that was just it? Like literally, like no one else. Like I felt crazy. I literally,
Of course you did.
I was like, okay, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal. Like I was just like, maybe I shouldn't have said anything. And for years, like I always battled with that. But you know what the kicker is? 6 years later, after that, I was forced to live with him. We lived in the same house um, because my parents moved in with their family so they could save for a house. And you want to know the bigger kicker? My dad is still best friends with him to this day. And when I was 17, my dad's reason for still being friends with him to this day is that he apologized to him. Not to me, not and didn't own up to anything. He apologized to my dad for what happened. Not the details, but just what happened.
What the fuck?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, what else do you say to that? I'm sorry your dad again let you down. Um, oh
That's how it was
God.
treated. Like it was nothing. Like it literally did not happen. And my brother did not know it happened until I told him a year ago. And he was very surprised. He did not know that happened because it was never just talked about ever.
Wow. So, um, when you're surrounded by narcissists, they're not able to see you. They're not able to see anything that doesn't reflect back to them who they are. They're in love with their own reflection. They're enamored with that. Um, Perhaps your dad found someone who is a lot like him. I do not mean in that particular way, but
Yeah.
in some way they reflect one another in some way or something. Um, but that gets down to just like the elders when you're sitting in that judicial committee or whatever meetings, and all they can do is see whether or not you're reflecting back to them what they want to see, or what the rules state. There's no empathy. They're not able to put themselves in your shoes. They're not able to mirror you. They're not able to see you as a hurting girl sitting in front of them. And your dad, I mean, what kind of man can have this happen and then not be able to see his daughter? And what being friends with her abuser would be like? What? That's pathetic. It's just, that is so sad, and I'm so sorry. He is just not healthy. None of
Um,
these people are.
no, I mean, it it still baffles me to this day. It baffles my husband greatly. He has no respect for my father just because of that, and I don't blame him. And I mean, this is just a thing. Like that's
But
just
what is there
what
to
it is.
respect?
And the worst part of it is that so I kind of got um I got away from him. Not because we meant to, but because we had found out that Baltimore City or my mom's school was getting they weren't meeting standards, so they were closing down the school. But my mom also was tired of teaching here because she taught in the inner city, and that comes with a lot of hardships. And she didn't want to teach her anymore. She was getting tired. She was like, if I don't find another thing, then we're gonna go back to the Philippines. I was like, okay. And her visa was running out, and they weren't sure if they were gonna renew it. Um, and so she was like, we're not gonna hide here. I'm not gonna stay here illegally. Like if we have to go back to the Philippines, at least we'll have a chance of coming back. So that was how she took it, which I was grateful for. But she found a job in New Mexico that would allow her to get her green card, but also it was a lot better than what she was doing, or at least she felt the environment was going to be a lot better. It was less pay, and it was in the reservation in New Mexico. Literally bumfuck nowhere. I mean, bumfuck nowhere. And I grew up in the city. I was in the city when I was in the Philippines. I grew up. I mean, I was in Baltimore City. It was the literal opposite of that. The beauty of all the trees on the East Coast and the beaches. I go to New Mexico, there's desert and open space and desert and more open space. And I was just like, oh, we drove into New Mexico. And my brother literally said, he was like, this is a joke, right? We're not moving here. We're gonna go back now, right? And my mom was like, nope, we're moving here. yeah, my brother was not happy. Neither was I. But it got me away from him. Um, this was like a year later, but we were there for about 2.5 years. Cannot stand it there. As soon as we could leave, we came back here. My mom stayed for another 6 months before she moved back here with us because she had to finish out her contract. But we moved back here when I was 17. And we always came here in the summer. Like, that was a road trip. We always had a road trip in the summer. And a lot of things changed when we got to New Mexico. After the incident happened, and a lot of things changed from that day. My whole life had just completely changed in my eyes, my little 12-year-old naive, innocent eyes. And I figured New Mexico was going to be another clean slate, because God knows we need another clean slate. And felt like I was running away from it, but I was really pioneered when I finished 8th grade in New Mexico, and everybody in my congregation was getting homeschooled because that's just how you do it, and you regular pioneer. So guess what I did? I homeschooled, also because I didn't want to go to school there. I mean, no offense, but I couldn't I was already taking, I was taking Spanish 3, and I was taking pre-calc, and I couldn't take that there. And I was forced into algebra, which is the enemy of a math teacher, because I had been taught algebra I could do algebra since I was 2nd grade. Like, I was bored. I was really, really bored, because I went from a top school in the Philippines, which is a lot because requirements there are a lot tighter than here. And literally, my report card would go 98, 99, 98, 99. Like, those are my grades. And we moved here, and the first year, it was 6th grade, and I just sat through 6th grade going, I learned this already. Like, except for American history, I wasn't learning anything new. Like, history was the only class where I was learning something new. And even, like, it's history class. It's literally the most boring class to a freaking middle schooler. Like, I was just like, okay. And so I made it my mission that I get homeschooled in high school. I told my mom, I said, I'm going to finish it in 2 years. And I did. I finished it in 2 years. But I started pioneering when I was 15. So that was the break that if I pioneered in homeschool, then it'd be fine. And my mom did not help me a single time when I was homeschooled. I had to learn everything. And I did it in 2 years. I pioneered through those years. I'm not sure if you saw the broadcast about the Navajo reservation, the growth there. But this was like 2-3 years ago, maybe. But that's what we were doing. We had built the first Navajo congregation there in New Mexico, in the reservation. So all throughout that, just pioneering 14, 16, 18 hours a day in field service. Like, this is open. Like, there's just nothing. And you're just in a car with a bunch of old sisters talking about, I don't know, but I felt like that's just how it was. And everybody else was older than me. I was the only like kid my age, and that really made it really hard for me, because I had a lot of friends here, and I was used to that. I wasn't used to the isolation. And this was in 2011 to 2013. So, cell service wasn't great either. And the internet, well, it wasn't great either in the middle of nowhere. So it was really hard. But that's how I dealt with it. I pushed my head deeper into the sand. I was like, I'm going to pioneer. I'm going to make up for everything I did. I'm going to finish high school. I'm going to go to Bethel. I'm going to do all these things. And that's, instead of jolting me into, okay, maybe this isn't for you. Maybe this isn't great. I dug my head deeper into the sand because I was like, I must be doing something wrong. They told me I'd be happy if I did this. So I must be doing something wrong.
That's how the manipulation is designed to work. Yes.
Yes. And that's just how it was. And we moved back here when I was 17. I was still regular pioneering. I was done with I was in college. I went to college. I got a job literally 2 days after I turned 18. And I think that's when it started to fall apart again, is that I turned 18 and I was working part-time. And then 3 months later, I got a promotion to full-time trainee. And my mom didn't like that. So I got the job in July. I went back to school in the fall. And all through that, I worked like 30 hours a week and still aced all my classes. My mom was paying for them. But she didn't like the fact that I accepted a full-time position. And she told me she wasn't going to be paying for school anymore because that wasn't my only focus. And I said, okay. So that was that. She didn't really, they had a much different turnout to my life than I pictured it. I started working a lot and going to field service less and missing a meeting here or there. And for a while, I was made to feel bad about it. And then I started living a really double life of going to our meetings. Unfortunately, we were on Friday nights. And I would, after the meeting, I would leave and sneak out and go to a party. I'd be out all weekend, pretending I was working half the time when literally half the other time I was doing things I shouldn't have been doing. But it started out small, just like everything else. It just started out small. Started cussing at work, and that was the first small thing. And then it just kind of all built up to me going, well, fuck this. I've done all of this. Like, I've done the good girl thing for a long time. And so I allowed myself to do that. And I remember the first month of 4 years that I didn't make my pioneer hours in a month. I was like, fuck. And so I did the thing that nobody should do, which was make my field service hours. And, the whole going out and drinking and hanging out with other people, the whole thing, I kept that in a separate world. And this was the one thing I was like, fuck. And I was really scared. I was like, they're going to find out I'm lying about it. I'm like, they're going to find out if they find out you're lying about your pioneer service hours, they're going to find out you're lying about your other half of your life. Like, but I did it. I faked my hours. I made it just so I made it. So I was 71 instead of 70. But I did it and no one found out. And the more I got away with it, just the more I did it.
I didn't know you could do that when I was pioneering.
I didn't know that for like 4.5 years. And then I found out that nothing was going to happen to me.
Yeah, that was a revelation to me after I left, how many people were faking field service time. Yeah, I was always honest about it, for better or for worse. Well, Allow me to break in here for a second. This channel is made possible by you, the listener. If you appreciate what we're doing here, please consider supporting at patreon.com/shunned, or leave a review on iTunes or other platforms. Like and subscribe. All those things help the channel. If you're looking for merch, you can go get some Shunned swag from the shunnedpodcast.com website, or reach out there to be on the show. If you're looking for more ex-Jehovah's Witness content, I'll recommend my first podcast called This JW Life. You can find that on podcast apps as well as YouTube. And if you're feeling stuck in life, struggling to find happiness and community, maybe you're haunted by the past, beating yourself up, unsure of who you are or what you even want out of life now that you've lost this one identity that was given to you by a cult, reach out through my other sites like ex-JWhelp.com, that's exjwhelp.com, or storyworkscoaching.com. And let's see about working together to help you find a life that fits you and who you are, maybe for the first time ever. And now, back to our guest. So you were just living, you were finally starting to be able to live a life that was authentic to you, though.
Mm-hmm.
You were starting to, or at least to be able to explore authentically and be able to try things. Even if it wasn't maybe what you ended up wanting for your life long term, you were at least able to go out and experiment some and see what was out there, what you did like, what you didn't. How did that feel? So were you just enjoying all of this, or were you in the back of your mind, were you like, well, Jehovah punished me once? Were you afraid of something happening again like that?
I was scared, but it was, as I said, it started out small, but it started in New Mexico. I would hang out with worldly kids. There's no one else that was my age in my congregation. And so, I'd hang out with worldly kids, and my parents always allowed that. Like, it was fine. These were other teachers' kids, and we all knew each other, and that was fine. But what they don't know is that when I was 14, I Googled sex and ended up into the World Wide Web. And that's what they didn't know. And I kept that to myself, and that was the one thing. And it was funny because you're a teenager. You're supposed to find, no one was going to talk. Hey, religion wise and culturally wise, no one was going to talk to me about it. Come on. So did my own research. And then we moved back to the city. I got my job and I had my own car, and it felt like I could finally go do some things that I've always wanted to do. I started hanging out with all the wrong people according to the Bible, but to me, I went out like a teenager does. Like, we all had fake IDs and went to the bar. Like, that was just something you do, but it was always, nobody ever found out about that. Like, nobody, not one person. And I got my pioneer rights taken away from me, and that's a whole different story. But that didn't happen because of that. And nobody ever found out. Just like nobody ever knew that this guy had assaulted me when I was 12. Nobody knew what the fuck I was doing. And I was also living with them at that point, and I didn't want to be in the house. Like, who wants to be under the same roof? And so that's why
No, I can't imagine how traumatic that must have been.
Oh, and this reminds me, Jesus Christ. So I had crashed my car into, not bad, but I just crashed my car into the side of the highway. It was slippery, and I lost control of the car. But if you ask my dad, it's because I was sneaking out, and that's what happens when we sneak out. But my car was in the shop, and I was waiting for it to come out, but I didn't have a ride to work. And I'd asked my dad if he could give me a ride to work, and he said okay. And then he ended up not being able to get me to work. So guess what he did? He asked his friend to take me to work. Yep. That was the most uncomfortable 15-minute ride of my life. I don't know why I consented to it to this day. I was
Your whole life hadn't you can I don't even know if I want to use the term consent, but because again, you didn't have choices, so it's hard to consent when you don't have choice. So your whole life hadn't you just kind of gone along with what you had to go along with to survive? So kind of similar to that, probably.
Yeah, I didn't want anything to come out. So I was just like, I'll just agree to this. It's 15 minutes. I'm not going to die. Like the whole entire time, I had my phone in my hand, and I was just like, look, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out of here. Like I was very, like, my anxiety like went through the roof. But that's just what happened. That's just how you do it. But yeah, that was.
Did you ever talk to your dad about? Did you ever talk to him about and tell him how it made you feel or anything?
I tried that once, and I was told, "Well, you should have told us that." So I never said anything again. Apparently, if I should have just said something.
Wow.
Yeah, that's my mom. I got into a fight with my mom, and I told her I didn't even want to live there. And she was like, she said to me, "You said it was fine." I was like, I don't really have a choice around here. I say it's not fine, and then what?
Were they gonna listen to you anyway? Like they were gonna listen to you or value what you had to say. They hadn't done that yet. What they were suddenly gonna start?
Apparently, I was just like, no, that's not like you're what? Like that's just what you do. Like you don't give me a choice. I just have to do it. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's just what I did. I went along with it. I worked time, went to school. I did all of it, and it's funny because things were happening in parallel to this. And it's so when I was in New Mexico, my so-called best friend would only talk to me like once a month. Like that was it. One of my other friends, who just happens to be of the male species, we got really close. We'd help each other. He's 6 years older than me. And one thing leads to another. And we were such young, naive witness kids. Like you weren't allowed to date. And my dad found out that we were talking or some version of that, and he didn't like that. He decided that he did not like that. So he literally made a rule at the Kingdom Hall that we were not allowed to speak to each other. We were not allowed to hang out with each other. I was paying for my own phone at that point. Like they couldn't take away my phone, but like I had just this sudden and then everybody knew, and it was way too much because both of us we were so young, and he was a ministerial servant, and my dad made his life a little hard, and he went to Bethel, I think about a couple months later after that. But that's just what happened. Like it was suddenly, because she's talking to this guy, and his only rebuttal to that is that because the Young People Act says that if you talk every day, this is going to happen, and that I can't remember, but this was considered dating. And I was like,
If only he held the same high standards for his creepy pedophile buddy. You know,
it was
that's
just, it's
but
ridiculous.
it's absurd. It's all ridiculous. Dude,
But
have some standards. Like,
yeah, he decided, like, I wasn't allowed to hang out with my friends because he would be there. Eventually, I stopped caring, and he can't stop me from doing whatever I wanted. I was grown. Like, what are you gonna do? He wasn't gonna kick me out of the house, but like, that was his point of contention.
wow.
So that happened, and you know, he was my best friend. Literally, like, if it was true that speaking to somebody would end up like that every day, then that means that I was dating like 5 other people of both
Right.
sexes. Like, because I had other friends. It's not like he was my only friend. We were really close, yeah, but he wasn't my only friend. That means I'm dating a whole lot of people. But when that's how you
Also,
grow up.
if you had feelings with him for him, who cares?
But exactly. But we didn't never put a label on it. We just,
Sure.
but it was just absurd. Like, I I literally was just like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why is it somehow that I do this and somehow I'm in the wrong? I make this mistake and it's my mistake again and my mistake again. And it just,
It's called
I was just like,
gaslighting.
I was just like, fuck this shit. Like, I can't. So then he went to Bethel. I was, of course, brokenhearted because everything had just kind of went up in flames, and that I didn't just lose someone I had feelings for. I lost my best friend.
Sure.
Like, we didn't talk for a long time because everything had gone so messy. But this was my best friend. For better or worse, he was there, and it just, my dad just kind of overlooked the fact that he was the only one that knew how depressed I was, and that I thought there was something wrong with me because I would hurt myself and I would think of literally killing myself. And he was the only one that knew about that. And now I had no one to talk to. And all of that was still sitting unresolved for me. And it just kind of stayed there. And I mean, my parents didn't know. For a long time, they didn't even believe I was depressed. This is coming from the same woman whose mother killed herself when she was 8 because her mother thought that her husband was cheating on her. No, he didn't. She didn't have solid proof. She just thought he was cheating on her, and so she killed herself. Much respect to my grandma. Sorry, but that's what she did. And my mother was also diagnosed with depression. And think about their thoughts. Filipinos don't believe in mental health. Neither do Jehovah's Witnesses. So you get a double whammy, and you just didn't exist. And there's only one person in the world that knew that. And I just was like, okay, I'm like, I don't understand this. I don't like it, but it's just what it was.
So, so where do you go from there? I mean, again, it's just sad. The adults are failing you at every turn, every turn. Particularly your parents. This is just, uh, they're just not there. They're not there to. They're not there to help. They don't see you. They can't validate you, and it's all about them clearly. So what do you do? You know, I know. So you've gone to New Mexico, and then you moved back. I know at some point there is a point where you stop. You know, you've done this thing now where you just keep going along with what you have to do, right? even though you might be experimenting on the side of it with a different type of life. But how do things progress to a point where you no longer are playing their games anymore? You know, where you step outside of the expectations that they have for you.
I actually still dug deeper after that.
No, did
It
you?
was, yeah.
It's amazing how we do that. I mean, so many
no.
people do, because we get shamed and we get shamed and we get shamed. And so at some point it's like, well, I'm going to make this right. Someday I'm going to do enough to finally be enough.
Yeah. And I just, after that, it was funny because this is what led up to me digging deeper, was that I was working closing shifts. So I was working till like 10 o'clock, and 3 days a week, I would go over to one of our friend's house to watch her kids, or bring her kids to drive her kids to school and get them ready for the morning. And so I would sleep over there at their house. So to make it easier for myself, because I would usually not end up home till like 11. And this one particular night, I was closing with my assistant manager, and he worked closing shift a lot. I did too. So we had gotten close, like friends close, and things went more than that. And this was when like Snapchat was really popular. I don't know if kids still use that these days, but but we talked a lot. No, more than that, but no, never progressed to doing anything. But one particular night, he was having a hard time because his girlfriend had just moved to Florida, blah, 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 blah. But we were in his truck and we were talking. And the one night we're just talking in his van, he in his truck, and he's just telling me things, and I'm just listening to him. And my dad pulled up beside his truck and literally threatened this guy to get me out of his car. I mean, my dad is like 5'6" and like 120 pounds. And I'm just like, are you stalking me? Like, I am literally just sitting there talking. I'm not doing anything. We are not doing, he did not catch us doing anything else. His windows were like semi-tinted, but you can still see enough under the lights. And I was like, did you just go bonkers on me? And he literally went bonkers on me when he took he told me I couldn't go anywhere else, and I was just like, what the? They literally punished me. They grounded me. A grown ass woman. They grounded me. I was supposed to go to work, and I was
How old were you then?
19.
Okay.
No, sorry, 18. Yeah, it's like a few months before
18, 19. Okay.
Yeah, but like this whole thing just completely like made him go bonkers. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And after that, I kind of was like, all right, let me just get my act together and try this again. And I did. I stopped going out to party, stopped going to the meetings high. But I was just never fully into it. But in that same summer, this brother came over to our congregation. He is from an English congregation. He was my age, and we started talking. And we all know how my father feels about me dating. Mm-hmm. Very opposed to it. And we started talking, and I was like, okay, well, at least he's a witness, and we're trying to do things right. He had just gotten baptized like a year before that, but he was going to where the need was greater. He told me to like And yeah, we started talking, and my parents didn't know about it until after their anniversary, which is in January. So we went the whole, we started talking in August, and then my parents found out in January. And my parents did not like this one bit. And the reason, well, he hasn't been baptized for that long. You're too young. So young people ask us that you should have this and this and this before you start dating. And I was like, oh my God, these people will never leave me alone. And as we all know, I dig even deeper because that's just what I do. You're going to tell me one thing, all right, I'm going to do quite the opposite. So they had him come to their house so that they could explain to him why he couldn't date me, why he wasn't good enough to date me. And now their house was an hour away from where he was, or an hour and a half away. And they made him drive all the way over there so they could tell him that I wouldn't be a good wife because I didn't know how to cook, I didn't know how to clean, I didn't know how to do anything. This is literally what my mom said. My dad gave him like one scripture, and what it basically came out to be is that, one, he's not Filipino. Two, I was not even good enough to be alive. And three, this was not going to happen under their roof. So I guess they started sneaking around. I did, because you can't tell me I can't do this. And what makes it even worse is that they threw me out of the house in May. I got married to him in July. And before we got married, already a lot of red flags. But I'm ignoring all these red flags because I'm mad at my parents. And this is what I'm doing. And I got married to him. And we were living with his parents because we were technically supposed to be saving up for our own apartment. And everybody else pretended to be happy for us. But my parents were not speaking to me anymore. I was not allowed to be anywhere near them. I wasn't allowed to be with my brother. Like, it just shut me out. And I was like, all right, I guess this is how it has to be. And I still went to the same congregation. My parents had moved congregations because they had moved houses, and they live in Southern Maryland now. But no, still Filipino. Like, you Filipinos talk. We're all in the same district. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so your parents basically shunned you.
Yes.
Because not because of anything even that the organization says, but because you went against the family cult.
Yes. And
the little mini cult inside the bigger cult.
Yeah, the cult that my mom ran. And that's just how it was. What my mother said, that's what went in our household. And it was funny. I was just like, okay, I guess you're not talking to me anymore. And everybody else were like, I don't know why you're not talking to her. Like, at least he's a witness. Like, they're doing all of this. And behind closed doors, I was being physically abused, emotionally, financially. I was working, but all of my money was going to him. I crashed my car. My first car, my lovely, lovely first car. I love that car so much. I crashed my car in September, because I was coming home from work and I was working at Amazon, and I was working overnight, and I was really, really tired, and it was raining cats and dogs, and I just wanted to go to sleep. And 2 months ago, me would have stopped at the parking lot and just took a nap. But my controlling of an ex-husband would not let me do that, because he wants it. This is what time I get off of work. I should be home by this time. And that was it. Even though he was already tracking my phone. But The one time I stopped at the Walmart parking lot so I could get 5 minutes of sleep because I was literally falling asleep on the wheel. I got home and got beat up because he saw I had stopped at the Walmart parking lot for 10 minutes. And so this second time around, I didn't get so lucky and get home. I crashed my car. And then he gets mad at me because I crashed my car and he had to go to work. And now we have to pay all of this money and I won't have a car anymore. And it just became this whole thing. And it got to the point where in November, around Thanksgiving, which I tried to kill myself. And you know what he did? He hid me in his room so that nobody else would know that I tried to overdose on pills. And he made me go to work the next day because we needed the money. And I was in pain. I was throwing up blood. And in my desperation, I called my dad. And my dad was like, you need to go to the hospital. Because I was at work and my bosses were like, you don't look good. And I was like, I don't feel good. They're like, you can go home. I'm like, nope, not happening. But my dad was like, you need to go to the hospital. So I guess my dad called him or got a hold of him or something because he picked me up from work and he dropped me off at the ER. And I know the nurse, the nurse had to get me out of my clothes, and she saw all of my bruises. But that wasn't their first concern. Their first concern was that my kidney was giving up on me. And so I was in the ER for like 24 hours. And then, of course, came the talk, social worker coming in saying, hey, anything you need to tell us? And I was like, nope, nothing. I'm good. So he's not, nope, I'm good. I just complete denial. Just, I'm not going to say anything to anybody. My best friend's mom, my childhood best friend, her mom was there and she heard the nurse say that I was covered in bruises, which was true. I was covered in bruises and he wouldn't leave my side. And I thought it was sweet until I realized that he wouldn't leave because he don't want me to say anything. Because the reason why I had gotten to that point was because he had found my phone and I had asked his sister if I could sleep over at her house and just take a night away. And he found that and he destroyed my phone and then took the hammer at me. So yeah. Yeah, he completely crushed my phone and I was not allowed to talk to anybody. And denied it the whole time. I was in the psych ward for a week, came out of the hospital, didn't feel great, and it was the same shit. He was good for like 2 days, and then it's the same shit over and over again. And then January came around, and he had done a lot of outrageous things, but the one thing that caught him with his parents was that we were fighting and he had found scissors in his room and he started coming at me with scissors. And he was coming at me because he knew I loved my hair. I mean, do you see all of this? He threatened to cut all of it off. And he came at me with scissors that he took out took out this, and I screamed. And that's what I screamed, not because I got, no, I was like, this is the one thing I have left. And now you are just screwing with me. And I yelled so hard. And like his dad broke down the door and got him off of me. And about 2 weeks later, he came to, it was gotten really bad. And we had a fight that day and he came into my job and started threatening me. So my bosses hid me away and told him they would call the cops if he didn't leave. And I texted my mother-in-law. I said, I need you to pack me a bag and I'm leaving. I didn't have anything on me. I didn't have any money on me, nothing. I said, I am not dealing with this. I am not. It's one thing for you to terrorize me at home, but he would leave me in Walmart parking lots. Like, he would literally just kick me out of the car in negative-degree weather. Like, he locked me outside of the house naked after showering. And it was a brisk 12 degrees outside.
I'm struck by a couple things, and I guess the part where you screamed over your hair, not yourself. And I think it just what makes me sad about that is that you didn't value yourself, right? You valued your hair, but when had you ever been taught that you had value? When did your parents ever teach that? They certainly didn't respond in any way that valued who you were. When you were abused before, or whatever the case may be, there was nowhere in there where you were ever taught to have value. And you were completely set up for this relationship. And it's just really sad because so many witness, I'll say young women, young guys too, but young women in particular, women have really very little value in the organization. None of us were anything more than good for nothing slaves of Jehovah. We weren't to value ourselves in any real way. We were gaslit our whole lives. We lived with narcissists and abusers our whole lives. So of course we were attracted to or found ourselves with yet the next abuser, because we were never given any chance to be healthy on any level. And it just sucks to see how many people are just set up to fail over and over and over again. And there's so much needless pain that could be avoided if people just didn't grow up in this toxic, abusive cult environment with parents who are attracted to the toxic, abusive cult environment because they themselves are toxic and abusive.
Yes.
And then it's just a culture or a circumstance that continues to happen over and over again. It's pervasive, and somebody has to be the one to break the pattern at some point. But it's sad because sometimes in order to break that pattern, things have to get really, really bad for people. And I'm just sorry that all this happened to you. I mean, this guy's a piece of trash. I'll even give him the benefit of he's hurt too on some level. I don't know where he came from, but it still doesn't excuse the horrific abusive behavior. And you certainly didn't deserve it. So I'm sorry that happened to you too. Was that your path out? Did your mother-in-law pack you a bag and then you were able to finally, did you get out? Where would you go?
So I called her and she dropped off a bag for me with necessities in it and my documents. And I called a sister and I asked her to pick me up, and she picked me up from work. My bosses had set me up so that if they told me that wherever, they wouldn't let me leave until I promised them that I would leave and that I would, and they had some kind of an escape plan for me. And my bosses were amazing. They got on my nerves a lot, but they were really great. And
they actually saw you and cared about you.
Yeah, which was new. But yeah, I called the sister. She called my parents. My parents came. Of course, the elders came. And of course, the first night I had to tell them everything. And I finally, got some sleep, and of course, had to go to the meeting and, do all that. And I decided I was going to leave. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want him to find me. So I had a witness friend in Florida. I called her. I flew out there. I was ready to start a new life. They had, my bosses had transferred me to another store down there. I was working. I'd put down for an apartment and then I missed my period and I took a pregnancy test and bingo, is his name. Oh, I was pregnant. And I looked at my options and I went, there's no fucking way I can do this. I am not ready. I was working basically a minimum wage job. I was hundreds of miles away from my parents. I was like, I can't do this. So my dad, who had just driven my their extra car down for me, I left. I packed my stuff, got my deposit back, and I quit. And well, I didn't quit. I told them I needed to transfer, but I got back up here, and the first order of business was to get a restraining order, which here is it's called something else. But I had to get a restraining order. In order to get a restraining order, I had to go to court and prove that I needed a restraining order. And I had pages and pages and pages of him, his text messages, bruises, just pages of them. And I had to go to court and I had to face him. And he had gotten a lawyer. I had a lawyer. She was really, really great. Didn't stop his lawyer from trying to destroy me on the stand. My dad was there. Another elder was there as a witness. But he threw in my face my mental health. Apparently, I wasn't mentally capable of making any decisions because, God forbid, the girl with depression makes any decisions for herself. But all of that, the suicide attempts, hurting myself, all of that made its way out in court. And I was granted the restraining order. And I got off that stand, and after the judge ruled, my dad tells me, you were really great on the stand, and you should thank Jehovah for that. And I was like, that was all me. I was the one that had to sit there and listen to this guy destroy everything about me. And that's Jehovah? No. I was the one that sat there and had to answer questions.
Where's Jehovah been all this other time? Where was Jehovah when you were 12? Where has Jehovah been in all this other time? But now it's Jehovah, right?
Yes. And I was just like, what the fuck? And then I lost the baby. And my doctor said it's from the stress. But I also have PCOS, as I know now. So being pregnant isn't really my friend. So, I lost the baby. Everything I'd come back for, it was just, I was exhausted. I was just so exhausted. And then I had to live with my mother. And I went back to the Kingdom Hall, and everybody looked at me like I was the leper. I had left my husband, it's just, it's not the thing to do.
Even though you had a restraining order and there was proof of all these bruises and all this abuse, still should have stayed with them, right?
Yep, I was not allowed to divorce him. No, I was looked down on because I decided to leave an abusive relationship. And then at home, things were hard. My mom was just being my mom. He'd literally remind me that it was a mistake over and over again. Like, just my mom, she didn't help matters at all. And then to top the cake off is that 2 months later, I was out drinking, where it shouldn't have been, but I was sexually assaulted by a friend of mine, or was a friend of mine. And I was so scared, I didn't call my parents. I called my ex-mother-in-law, and she got me to the hospital. And the police told me I had to call my parents. And I called because someone had to get me from the hospital. And I called my dad, and my dad said, I'm leaving for Texas in the morning. I can't come out there. And I called my mom, and she was like, "No, I'll just see you tomorrow." Just that. And then they both went to sleep, and I'm in the hospital with my mother-in-law, and she was the one that got me out of there. That she got us breakfast, and she got me back to my car, made sure I was okay to drive. And I got back home, and my dad wasn't here. And so my mom was very mad at me because I was out all night. That's what she was mad about. Is that I was out all night. And then she says, "It's your fault that happened." And so I yelled at her and I said, "You're a fucking bitch." And I slammed the door in her face. And guess what she does? She calls my dad's other best friend, and told him that she needed others to come to the house because she was scared for her life from me. Because I called her a fucking bitch.
Oh, she is. Come on, man. Like, yeah.
It was true, but she did not like that. I mean, but that's just how she was.
So now she's the victim.
Yeah.
So all the stuff that she's thrown at you, and the first time, this is how it is, classic narcissist. The first time you take a stand against them, oh, they're so hurt. They're the victim. Oh, you're just such a horrible person. So dramatic.
Yep. So yeah, I was just like, okay, I can't stay here because after my first suicide attempt, I had to start going to therapy, and I had to start being on medication. And I kept talking to my therapist, and I kept going, I can't live here. I am gonna kill myself. But I didn't have another option. I mean, I could either live there or live in my car. And I was working about like 50 hours a week, and I had saved up money. And she had done something, and my first thought was, I'm gonna get in my car and I'm gonna crash it into a pole, and then I'll be done with this shit. And I was like, I need to leave. So that's what I did. I left. I went on a little trip. Somehow ended up back here. I wasn't supposed to end up back here, but I ended up back here. And I was surfing couches. I'd get like short-term rentals, and I saved up for my own apartment. And I lived in my car for 6 months, well into winter. And I got my own apartment in December. I was working 80 hours a week. I was taking classes, but I did it, and I didn't do it. I did it without their help, and I was away from them. I stopped going to the meetings. I stopped anything to do with any of that. And guess who cared? Nobody. Nobody texted me. Nobody was. The only person who texted me was mad at me because I left.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left. I was planning on divorcing him. I was working 2 jobs, and I met this guy at my second job, and we started dating before I started divorcing my ex-husband, which was a sin to everybody, including my ex-mother-in-law. And she did not like that. And I told her son beat me up every day, and they did nothing about it. And that's where that conversation ended. And as thankful as I am for everything that she did, you can't make up for a lot of things with 2 or 3 good deeds. And that's just how it was. So we started dating, and guess who ended up in a toxic relationship again? This time I wasn't getting beat up. So it was even a little worse because I kept thinking, okay, no, like and there would be every couple months or so, he would do something like throw a table at me or something. And I just excused all of it. but it was the same thing. I had 2 jobs. I was helping him out. He had just graduated college, and he had to move back in with his mom. So I was helping him out a lot. He didn't have a driver's license because nobody was around to teach him. So I did all of that, and I supported us. Waited till he got a job. Like 6 months later, that was an actual job, and he acted like none of that happened. And then it just kept getting worse and then getting worse. And then it got to the point where I attempted to take my life again. And he told me I was faking it, and that the day I got back from the hospital, kicked me out of our apartment. He called my parents, to get me out of there. So my parents picked me up, and I got back to their house, and I was like, this is what happens when I don't serve Jehovah. I just get kicked in the ass over and over again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try again. So I did. I went to a judicial meeting and laid everything out. And guess who didn't get this fellowship? Me. I didn't get this fellowship. I got reprimanded. You know why? Because I'm an elder's daughter. And these was elders that I had grown up with. And they just, they have disfellowshipped a lot of people for a lot less. And so I might have just gotten special treatment because I did not get this fellowship. And it was just that I was just told I had to go back to study with a sister, to go to meetings. I wasn't allowed to have any privileges. I wasn't even allowed to comment at the meetings, the whole yard. And that's what I did. And the judicial meeting was intrusive. It was, oh, what did you do in the year that you were gone? Did you have sex? Not just have sex. Did you have anal sex? Did you have oral sex? And I'm like, okay. Did you do drugs? Did you have everything was just like, whoa, what did you do? And I did a lot of things. And I did just all of it. And there was a brother in that judicial meeting who outright asked me if I had lied about my sexual assault. And he was newish to our congregation, and he just outright said, did these things even happen? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, why are you? And he was so fixated on that. And the 2 other brothers in that committee had known me since I was 11. And I could tell they were not happy about him asking that question. But no, we just glossed over it, and that was it. And then I went to study, and I went to the Kingdom Hall, and people talked about me behind my back. Even though I was never disfellowshipped, everybody acted like if they were even around me that they were going to drop dead. It was just, and I made it like a month. And then I was like, it's my birthday. I'm going to go do something with my worldly friends because they care about me and y'all don't. And my parents found out that I had booked a hotel down in the city, and I was going to celebrate my birthday. They went through my email. They got a hold of my email from my brother because my brother had access to my iPad, and completely, right into my privacy. And that's just how it was for me. They just broke my privacy all the friggin' time. I wasn't allowed to have any privacy. And they found out. My mom got mad. The whole thing, she just freaked out on me. And my dad kept going, we can go to the convention and you're going to do things right. And I was like, fuck this. Literally, I have done everything. I am so tired of this shit. I am gone. And I found a place. I moved out and I started living on my own. And I just put it all behind me. So I was physically out, but I was still kind of mentally in. I still believed in a lot of things. And then a few months later, I stumbled upon the ex-JW subreddit. And I still have a friend. He's a Jehovah's Witness, but he still talks to me, and we're still pretty close. And I told him I bumped into it, and he jokingly said, "Don't look at the apostate stuff." And I was like, "I won't. I'm just here to read other people's stories." And then, of course, that leads to one thing. And then I found Lloyd Evans' YouTube channel, and then everything that I had known about my life was just all shattered to pieces. And that I ran into your podcast, and I just that was pretty much it for me. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. So 2 years ago, or about 2 years ago, January 24th, 27th, I was announced that I was disassociated. Turned in my letter, told my parents, fuck you guys. No, I didn't say that. I said, thank you for everything that you did, but I'm leaving. I'm not doing this anymore. And I'm going to get disassociated. I warned everyone on my social media that I was not going to let them have control over letting everybody know. I let everybody know before they read that letter, because I was leaving on my own accord. I don't care what you think anymore. Everything that I had thought I'd known is now shattered to pieces. I didn't know what to do after that, but I just knew I had to leave. And I was not about to be abused again. I was not doing all that. And I just walked away. I didn't look back since that.
So I'm glad that you were able to disassociate and put them all behind you. Disassociation itself is kind of like a boundary. It's like, this is the end of this thing. And now, I mean, that doesn't mean that it ends as far as the healing we need to do or whatever afterward, but at least, those people, the elders aren't going to reach out to you anymore. You don't have to look over your shoulder and worry who's, going to come drag you into a judicial meeting. I guess with your parents, was that the end of that relationship? Did they full on shun you after that?
No, actually. So they did. They shunned me for a few months. And for a few months, I was in California. I was I was dating someone, and I was like, well, I'm gonna move to California to see if you're worth all of this hype. So I did, and that didn't turn out great. And I moved back here. I mean, I always had a backup plan. I had learned at that point that I wasn't going to do anything without a backup plan, because I had been burnt over and over again. And I was like, I'm not letting anybody treat me like that. And, I left him because he was making me feel like I was crazy all the time again. And I came back here, and my ex, before that, we had signed on a car together, which was my car, and he decided he wanted it back. Well, my then other ex told him I was coming back, gave him my address, and he went and stole my car back. And so both of my exes ganged up on me because I'm just the most awful woman in the world. But yeah, he took my car, and I was like, okay, I guess that's that. I didn't really care. So I told my mom, and my mom was like, all right, I'll co-sign on a car for you. And I was like, I don't really need you to. But it was also the pandemic. I wasn't working, and I still needed a car because I would go on part-time jobs. I would babysit. I would do kind of odd things, but I was on unemployment. So it's kind of hard to get a car when you're on unemployment. So I was like, all right, fine. So she signed a car with me, and that's the car I still have. But I started dating my husband now back in 2020, and June of 2020, and we met on Reddit, and he's from Vancouver. And it was funny because I wasn't looking to start dating again, because I was like, fuck this, I keep getting hurt. someone will have to prove themselves to me before I do this again, especially getting married. And he had a good job, he had a house in Canada, but I was not willing to move because um, he lived in an island off of Vancouver, and there was like two people that lived there, not two, but and his mother also lived with them. And I told him I am not living with in-laws ever again. So I was like, I just no. And it was also harder because of the pandemic and then everything else. And um, around August that year, he decided to come here and visit me. And well, things just kind of got rolling after that.
Okay. So you said, so you're talking about your parents shunning you. So then I guess, I mean, do they talk to you anymore, or it was just the whole thing with co-signing the car?
Yeah, it was, well,
And
no,
also, do you
sorry.
really?
There was a point to that story I was going
Oh,
with.
okay.
But so yeah, we started dating. He met my parents actually in August when he came here, and they loved him, absolutely loved him. And we joke that one, it's because he's a white man, and also because I mean, he has his own house. I mean, he was stable in life, and that's, my parents, I guess, was looking for that, which I don't blame them. It's definitely a qualifier, but they absolutely loved him. He's the first white guy I've ever brought home too. And so we decided that to see if this would work, that he would come live with me for a couple of months. And he moved here in September, and he either had to go back to Canada or we got married after 3 months. And we decided we were going to get married, and my parents helped with everything. They helped. We had a very small wedding. They were at our wedding. They got us a couple of gifts, actually. They actually bought our honeymoon for us, which we didn't get to go to until last December. But they helped him with his papers. The one thing my mom is really, really good at is throwing money at problems. And so that's what she did. She he started working. He got his work permit 4 months ago. And she lent him their extra car, because they had an extra car, because she had just bought my brother a car. As I said, golden boy, he didn't do nothing wrong. He had 2 cars at that point, so we were borrowing the one. And everything was fine and dandy. We were getting along. It wasn't great. It was always there. But I thought, it's family, give it a chance. And that's what my relatives, Filipinos, family is very important, the whole shebang. So everything was fine up until September of last year. And I had gone to Arizona, and I was driving back here. And I went to Arizona to meet a friend, and I was driving back to Maryland, and my husband had gone to their house so that he could pick up mail, because all of our important mail went to their house, because we live in the city, and for some reason mail just gets lost here. And so all of our important mail was going over there. And they asked him where I was, and he said offhandedly, he was like, I don't know, somewhere in New Mexico, Albuquerque, I don't know. And they both freak out at him. They're like, you don't know where your wife is? And all of it's like, you should know where your wife is all the time. He was like, I can call her. And we have each other's locations turned on just in case. But he doesn't. He was like, I can call her. I don't know where she was at. When she called me, she was in Albuquerque. And they just laid it onto him. They were like, you should know you're the head of the household. You're the man of the house. You should know where she is all the time. And he just looked at them and he was like, nah, fuck this. And he laughed and he called me and he told me what happened. And I was like, it's ridiculous. And then my father has the gal to call me, not my mother. My father had the gal to call me and pretend like he wanted a normal conversation. And then he was like, well, where are you? I was like, oh, just leaving New Mexico, going into Texas. And he's like, does your husband know where you are? I was like, yeah, of course he knows where I am. Like, what kind of question is that? Well, he made it seem like he didn't know. And my husband is very literal. And so when they asked him where I was, he was like, I don't know, because he didn't know literally where I was. And that's what my dad took as, well, he didn't know where you were. Did you even ask him for permission to do this? I just looked around the car and I went, excuse me, did you just ask me if I got my husband's permission to drive across the country? Did you just ask me that question? So I said, I don't need his permission. And my dad was like, yes, you do. He's the man of the house. You know, your mother and I, we don't make any decisions that we both don't agree on. You gotta ask for permission. And I was like, really? Mom does that? Because from what I know, mom doesn't do that. Mom gets to say whatever the fuck she wants to say, and that's it. And he got mad at me. I was like, what in the world? What in the tarnation did you just walk into my life and tell me that my husband has to give me permission to do what I want? Like, we've done this circle of me saying this is my boundaries, and you guys were doing just fine up until that point where you were just like,
I'm gonna say I don't think they've ever been doing just fine. Ever. I don't think there's ever been a moment in your life where your parents have been doing just fine or your relationship has been fine.
Yeah, but like, you know, we were keeping each other really, but I thought I'd finally gotten the message across that I'm not doing this. Like, you're not allowed to ask me this questions. You're not allowed to interrogate me. You're not allowed to tell me what to do anymore. No. And he did all that in one phone call. And I said, no, fuck that. Now I'm in the middle of nowhere. I'm mad. Like, no, I'm not doing this. So I told him, look, I've been trying to stay gracious because I love my brother. I just want the best for him. I thought that me being around would be best for him. But you're also wrecking my mental health. I am not doing this anymore. I am finally doing what I need to do. I am on my path, and you are just, no. And you know what my sweet mother did? We got back. I got back home, and we still had my brother's car, and my mom wanted it back. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it's her car, not my brother's car. Suddenly it's her car now. And so my brother's permission for us to use it doesn't exist anymore. It's her car. Mm-hmm. And so she wanted it back Monday morning. And I said, I can't do that. I got the day off of work, but I also have appointments I need to go to. And so so I told her, I was like, you can pick it up. You want it so bad, come pick it up. We picked it up when we wanted it. My brother said it was fine, and now you're taking all of that back. You can come pick it up. And my husband wasn't going to do it. He gets up for work at 6 a.m. And she wanted it the next day at 7 o'clock in the morning. I said, no, we're both going to work. We have to work. No. And we were in the middle of a meeting at work, and my mom, my husband and I work for the same company, but we were in a company meeting, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning. And my mother had, up to that point, just terrorized us, just saying, you give the car back. You give the car back. And we told her it was here. It was ready for her to pick up. You can give her the keys and she can go. Nope. She wanted to be stubborn. So she came that morning when she both knew full well both of us were at work. And she brought the cops because she said that we would stop her. We said in text messages, completely clear, there's no ifs, ands, and buts about the car is here, the key is here, come by when you want to get it, we'll give you the key. This is the times we're home, and that's it. And nope. And then to top it off, she gets the cop knocking on my office door in the middle of a company meeting, and my boss next door. And my employee came up to me and she said, cops are here. And I'm like, what the fuck are they? And it was the perfect moment where I was having to do the meeting. Like, it was my turn and it was my department. And I was like, fuck. And I opened the door and the cop's like, do you have the car keys? And I'm like, no, it's at home sitting in our shelf. Like, we told her. And he's like, well, so you're not hiding me? No, I don't care. And he laughs and he just walks away. I'm like, that had to be the worst call you had to be on today. Cause like, this lady is just crazy. And our neighbors, they're amazing. And they started texting in the group chat. They're like, there's someone that's taking your car. The cops are here. I was like, it's my mother. She's crazy. It's okay. And that was that. I told her she had she flipped the switch that fast. And I knew it because this was the same thing over and over again.
This is
my
who
whole
she
life.
is.
Yep. And as soon as she doesn't get her way, she throws a tantrum. And this was her tantrum. And I said, nope, this is the last time you're ever doing this to me. My brother's going to turn 18 in April. Whatever he chooses to do, that's on him. But I'm done. Nope. But I was like, I took my mother calling the cops on me for something I didn't even do for me to go, what the fuck is this mess I'm in? But
yeah, again, it's one thing when you're shunned by your family. It's another thing when you start to realize how toxic, dysfunctional, and awful they truly are. And then you can start to set that boundary for yourself and, whether you want to call it shunning them or whatever. It's actually not shunning because you don't have an organization telling you have to. But when you set a boundary and you have every right to keep a toxic person away from you, your parents are toxic. And if you don't want anything to do with them, you don't have to have anything to do with them. Just because two people had sex and you were a byproduct of it, apparently in this case, they held that over your head too, doesn't mean that they were ever healthy or good for you in any way. The title mom and dad doesn't magically mean somebody is good for you or healthy for you, or that you should ever really have them in your life. Many people have parents that sexually abuse them, or parents that mentally and emotionally or physically abuse them, or whatever the case. And we don't have to have them in our lives just because they're family. What does that mean? Who said that we have to have family in our lives? That's just man-made social constructs. So, if these people are as toxic as they sound and they're as harmful to your life as it sounds, you don't have to have them in your life.
Oh yeah, no. My husband's never liked them. And I mean, no, he put up with it because it was something that I wanted. And he was more than happy to say no. Because as I said, he never liked my father after he found out what he found out from me. And so,
oh yeah, if I was your husband and I found that out, oh fuck that motherfucker, I would never. I mean, that would be no. We would never speak. There's no way. I mean,
yeah, and it was, and if you ask my mother, she was the most excellent mother in the world. She gave me everything I wanted. As I said, she threw money at it. That's what she was good at. She bought us stuff, she showered us some gifts and food.
It's like love bombing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what she was good at. And also controlling the shit out of my dad and her son. So yeah, but yeah, Dad's out of the picture. Whatever my brother does is his own thing. But I am perfectly happy with where we are because I can't deal with that mess anymore.
So now you get to live your own life, and it's your life and your husband's life, and you all get to decide who's in it and who's not, who's healthy for you and who's not. I mean, goodness, look at your life, and I mean, how many times you've been pushed to the edge, and how many times that involved either Jehovah's Witnesses and or your parents. These are clearly not people that have ever been good for you. So you two now get to have your own life and decide what gives to you in this life, what, instead of just taking from you, what actually gives to you and, you know, enhances your life rather than detracts from it. So what do you want in your new life? What do you like about your life now with your husband?
Honestly, it's a complete 180 from what I know. Like I was so used to abusive relationships. I mean, this man doesn't even raise his voice at me. he you know, we've been together for almost 2 years now, and I have never been scared that he would hurt me. I mean, you know, I, we don't fight. We don't call each other names. We disagree, and I get mad at him. I don't talk to him for like an hour, and then he'll his way of breaking the ice is either making a joke or making me food, and either of those work. And that's it. You know, that's just what we do. He'll try to make me laugh, and I'll finally just stop pretending, and I'm like, all right, fine, we're fine, we'll talk about it, because I've just never talked. Like, I wasn't allowed to say how I felt or what I wanted. And if you're so used to that for such a long time, having someone sitting there going, okay, what do you want? Like, can you tell me how you're feeling? You're just kind of sitting there like, I don't know. What am I feeling? Can you tell me? It's just,
Yeah.
it's just, I told myself I wouldn't marry again until I knew that we lived together, and things weren't easy. He wasn't working for a year, and I had to keep a roof over our heads, but we made it work. I mean, he started working about 5 months ago, but we were fine. I mean, if money is what causes a lot of divorces, I think we're well past that, because that we've had our fights, but it's just, there's no slamming doors or me getting hit or threats to my life. There's no ignoring me for a week. Just he always jokes that we can't stay mad at each other for longer than an hour. And this just happened. I keep going, and I keep looking back, and I'm like, what the fuck was I in? Like, this is weird. And he didn't exactly come from healthy parents either. I mean, his parents are divorced, dad's an alcoholic, mom's a crazy bitch. And it's a whole nother story. But
sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah. And I mean, our relationship, I mean, we both did not want what our parents, at least his parents are divorced. Like, my parents they're still miserable together. It makes everyone else miserable. But yeah, I mean, we have 3 dogs and 3 cats, and I mean, I told him, I was like, I want to see how you treat these. Like, we got a dog I've always wanted a dog, and we got a dog when he moved in with me initially. I mean, he's never had, he's a pity puppy. So he's a pity, and he's never had a pity before, but he was so patient with him. He was only like 6 months old. So he's still a puppy, but he was just stay at home. He did chores, he cooked, he did everything, and no complaints, nothing. And he was I was just like, this is just so weird. Like,
Well, so
you
I think that's a good point. When you are a byproduct of so much abuse, it some healthy things can feel abnormal. In fact, they can feel very uncomfortable because you're not used to it. And even like you said, trying to identify your own feelings when those feelings have never been allowed in your life, obviously that's a very healthy thing to be able to identify your feelings and to speak those feelings and to advocate for yourself and to have healthy communication with a partner. But when you've never had that before, that doesn't necessarily always feel good, and it can be difficult in and of itself as you're trying to get used to that, because it's not normal to you. It's never been present in your life. So, there is an adjustment, even when two people in a long-term marriage, if one person starts working on boundaries or finding themselves, that boundary push back and forth, that can cause a lot of angst in a relationship, even between two people that have been fairly healthy, just because things are shifting and changing and people's norms are getting moved a little bit. So good for you guys for doing this for each other, because it sounds like you both come from some amount of toxicity. And good for you for being able to offer that to each other and to be patient with each other as you try to figure out how you feel and try to figure out how to express that. Life after Jehovah's Witnesses is not like you leave and things are suddenly magical. You don't leave all that abuse and then suddenly walk out into healthy. It's not like Jehovah's Witnesses in their picture of the fiery Armageddon, and then all the people in khakis and button-up shirts, like walking into an instant paradise, right? Like they forget that there would have to be an in-between with dead bodies all around and all these horrible things that need to be cleaned up before they can have this paradise. When you leave Jehovah's Witnesses, you don't just walk out into some paradise. There's a lot of dead bodies behind us that we need to clean up. There's a lot of stuff. We all have trauma and we all have a lot that we're trying to, it's behind us, but it's coming with us. You can't outrun it. You have to deal with it. And so it sounds like you guys are doing that. And I hope you can see how strong you both are to be able to be doing that, even though, again, his wasn't an ex-JWs witness background.
Yeah, no. And every time I tell him like stories of my childhood, or he actually started watching Lloyd Evans videos with me, and he would scroll through the ex-JWs subreddit, and he just looks at me and he goes, "How are you even here?" Like he's like, that is a completely different Jacelly that I know. I was like, yeah, I'm aware. Like, yep, I really did all of that. And he's like, I don't even know how you did this. I was like, dude, it took a long time, but I'm here now.
Yes, you are. You're here now and you shared your story. Hopefully it helps others who've been through similar things. And I hope you can appreciate the strength that it took to be here now, because it's a very, very difficult process that we all went through. And we're all a lot stronger than we may ever think we are. But when that's been what we've been through, that's our normal, right? That's just what we knew. And we survived that. But it takes a lot of strength to survive all that. And I'm glad you're still here too. So thanks for stepping up and telling your story.
You're welcome. Thank you. That was really great.